Welcome to Keep Going, a podcast about failure and success, hosted by John Biggs. Every week, we talk to an amazing person about a time they failed and what they learned. And remember, when you're going through hell, keep going.
Welcome back to Keep Going, a podcast about success and failure. I'm John Biggs. Today on the show, we have Stephen Gillen. He's an entrepreneur, a TV personality, a actor, best-selling author. You have lived a multitude of lives, Stephen. Welcome.
Nice to be here, John. Nice to be here.
Yeah. So
All extremes, my friend.
Yes,
All
extremes.
I have to say, yeah.
You're doing so much. I want you to talk to me about what you're doing right now, and then also how you got here. I know that there were some troubles in your past that seemed that it seems like it might shape the man that's sitting in front of me right now. Why don't you tell me a little about what you do, what you're working on, and how you got here?
Yeah, I mean, let me just say, when I started, I wasn't on the floor. I was 20 foot under it. I wasn't set up for success in any way. I was just abandoned as a child over in Ireland. Everyone was killing each other. That was the thing. And when I was 9, I was then the little child on the boat coming over to the East End of London. It got a lot worse before it got better. I was groomed into organised crime, into prison for a long time, 17 years. And of course, changed my life. The metamorphosis, of course, is complete. So let me just get that in there first, so people understand where I come from. Many moons ago, of course, when I was younger. But where I am today, I'm a serial impact entrepreneur. So my core business is I build brands. I've built over 500 plus businesses and brands, and some of them all the way up to IPO now. I have a fund, right? So we're in trading as well. I have an AI company, and we even shape products and stuff like that now in China, right? With tech and global distribution behind that, all right? Just to make it really simple. But the other part of me is, I'm a best-selling author and with my story, and so I've worked with some great names: Orlando Bloom, Bryce Dallas Howard. Just some months ago, and Deep Cover, the film there, just very surreal hit series on Sky with Sean Bean. So just say that because I've got 2 TV series and 2 films signed this year coming into that. So I've got that going on, which is my creative side, John.
So you were jailed at 14. It looks like you were in jail for quite a bit. East End gang. What was the impetus that got you out of all that? I mean, there's so many people that I talk to who have far fewer like obstacles, and it sounds like you had a massive wall right in front of you. How did you get over it?
You know what, John? I'm a great believer in one of the great things in life is proving people wrong. And that's why anything is possible. You have to work at it, but of course, it's about you have to change yourself first, your mindset, your internal engineering to be better the next day, and keep going, right? And you've got spiritual, emotional, mental, physical. These are hard things for a human being to overcome. Just to say that, to try and package it to help people out there, and I really had it all. I had addiction. I had the criminality thing. Mental health. Really, I had the whole bit, but I found my way through that. When it comes to the organized crime stuff, I was something I was never meant to be, really, obviously, but it just goes to show how we can be set up for a certain thing that is not us, right? And I paid a heavy price for that. I'd done 11 years and 9 months as a high security prisoner out of a 17-year sentence, right? So you can understand it wasn't small stuff. It was the big stuff as well. But I saw through that life, in many ways, and, wanted out of it. Not saying that there's not some good people who are trapped in that life, but it's an evil life.
But it seems to me that sort of life was an alternative to, I guess, just living on the street, right? You were able to make money in a way that ideally, like a 14-year-old wouldn't be able to normally make. In that situation. Is the lure of that is the lure of that easy money did that stop you at any period? Did the jail sentence pull you out of it, or what kept you out of it?
Yeah, but for me, it's all about the architecture, the environment,
Mhm.
but it's definitely about the role models too. So I was very much set up for that. Some of the older people in my family was real high profile career trails. So
Mhm.
the guys, the women, they seem to have the respect, the shiny stuff. So this is what the way we've done things and what you aspired to be. Of course, it was the wrong thing to pick. Pick anything, right? But don't pick that. But of course, I was positioned for that. So it's very addictive, because what you're talking about as 14-year-old kid where I was is survival is the first thing. Right? Survival, to get through the next day, to survive. And the other part of it is you're looking to be part of something, to belong to part of a family, because I was very much abandoned. So there you have the drivers there.
After that 11 years and 9 months, what did you do the first day out?
Do you know what? The truth is, when you do long-term imprisonment like that, I mean, I must have done about 5 years solitary confinement, which is 23 hours, bang up, all right, solitary. It really takes you to the most base part of your human soul, to go through something like that, right? Which is in the forging, but it gave me a lot of time in my hands to understand me and to study. So a lot of these skills, but it was very tough. This was, extremely tough. What I'm saying is that you're institutionalized. So, it's going to take, anyone like that. I mean, it took me 4 years to get into a sentence like that, John. I'll tell you, it'll take you 4 years for it to really hit. But on the other side of it, it takes you a good 2 years, 3 years to reintegrate back into society. I hope that paints a bit more of a picture. It's not, what did you do the first day come out? It's much deeper than that.
I'm not saying did you get McDonald's. I'm saying what did you do to get on the path that you're now? So it took about 2 years, right? Yeah.
Look, the path was, it was very hard for me because I had a reputation, and this is one of the things that locks you into a life like that. And you have the infrastructure, and you don't have any other skills, and of course you're way behind with everything. For me, I realized that I had to change absolutely everything: people, places, and things. It's in my book, Extraordinary: The Search for a Life Worth Living. It's going to be a TV series, but just to make it really easy, one of the things I had to do, John, was get my humanity back. So, I went to, I went voluntary at some churches, in the East End for the homeless, and, I had to go in there, I washed the floors, I helped out in the kitchen, I made the beds, but mostly I just talked to people. And that was really important for me. So it wasn't about me, because I had to heal and I had to do it. And that was a great thing for me. I went to university and then I passed with honors, with a business degree. I'd done all the things that I wanted to be or thought if I'd have had other chances, it wouldn't have been great. I could have done that. And that was the start of it. I'd done some real honest, hard work. My family had a building company. I didn't get any favors, let me tell you. This was groundwork, so I got it worse. But I started off then as a £70 a day labourer. Shit and dirt and rain. But you know what? I needed that too, because I needed to be humble. I needed to understand about real work, right? And I went from labourer to supervisor to, running my own team to running my own business within 18 months. So there's part of the bridge.
What do you think it is in your personality that encouraged that sort of speed? I mean, that's 18 months, right? So you went from the dirt to sitting in the whatever, the trailer, supervisor.
The dirt to the boardroom.
Dirt to the boardroom. That's your next book.
To the boardroom.
Yeah. What is it in your personality that's able to do it? And what do people need to be able to do that?
Listen, you know what? There's a few things. What I would, what I say to my children, for instance, this is a good one. I say to them, listen, I'm going to give you the first lesson. Do you know what it is? No one's going to come and save you. Neither should they. Neither should they. get with the program because this is the way it is. So that's the thing. No one's going to do it but you, basically. Like literally, really. You know, you got to understand that. Neither should they, right? You know, you've got to understand that, the mindset, and you've got to want it more than anything else. I mean, sometimes I said, I said to my kid, I said, you know what? I'd rather be dead than be poor.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I'd rather walk into the sea than after everything I've been through. Not in a flash way, but I want quality. I want my self respect as a man. You know, as a traditional man, to be able to achieve something. To be after wasting so much of my life, and I think losing so much of my life and making so much bad decisions. So when the lights come on, John, they really come on. Do you know what I mean? And that was the thing. And since then, I haven't stopped moving forward. Right. And it's every day is a learning day. You've got to be open to learn, you know? This is where a lot of people go wrong as well. Not from people who are going to waste your time. You don't have any time to waste. You know, be humble and be open to learn. Every day is a learning day, you know? That's how you elevate, you know? There's so many traps there. Because really in business, especially in the early days, it's different when you get really experienced because you've got the people, places and things in the infrastructure. But when you're coming through to get your first kind of stable, viable success as an entrepreneur, you know, you realize that most of your big breakthroughs are not the practical, clever business stuff, which you've got to do anyway, but they're internal stuff within your character. You know? I mean, look, you know, I've said it many times. I don't know anything as exponential for growth than being an entrepreneur. You know, it saved my life because if you're going to be any good at it, you know, and keep your seat, then you've got to learn many skills, you know, and a lot of them are about human being and how you're going to be, you're going to finish things, how you're going to learn, how you're going to all of this stuff. So, you know, I hope that helps.
That's an interesting point. So it sounds like, so from the ground to the boardroom, right? So you were swinging a hammer, and then you started running your own business. Did but you knew the business soup to nuts, right? So you knew the business from the ground up to the getting the contracts, getting up to salesmanship. Is that absolutely a needed skill set, like everything for a new entrepreneur, or can they learn that slowly? What's the value of a technical entrepreneur who basically knows how to build something and run it versus an operator who can potentially get the guy to build it and then run the show fully?
Listen, look, there's two ways, and we always say this as founders, CEOs, you know, you get to understand this as well. There's entrepreneurial and managerial. You need both, John. Well, how do you put them together? And it's about creating things. Even when you're creating a partnership or a board or a JV or an SP, whatever it is, it's about creating things. And the art of it is, how do you set that up? You know, and experience is the best teacher. You know, sometimes, you know, hit some walls in the way through and fall down and all that. But, you know, that's what I'm saying about being open to learn. It's not that you don't hit some walls. You know, some of the top people in the top Fortune 500 companies and say, make as many mistakes as you can, as quick as you can, get them out of the way. So it's not that you make mistakes, make as many as you can, because you're going to make some anyway. But experience is the best teacher. And don't be scared about it. Don't be the thing, but, you know, be humble, be open to learn. The thing is not to go back. Not to go back, you know, learn the lesson from whatever it is, you know, and that's going to continue. But then there is your exponential growth, you know, and then that becomes a pattern. All right? Like your hard wiring that into your actions, your discipline, how you see things, what you've learned. And that becomes easier because you're looking at momentum then and being good at what you do, right? What you apply yourself to. And I suppose that's a good way to say it.
So the pattern is fail early and often, as quickly as possible. What happens when there's money on the line? What happens when there's a pram in the hall, right?
That is a great question because it's a real thing. My answer to that, you know, is only for me. This is where, you know, you harness the backstory that you have. For me, I took that learning from the street because I had to survive. I had to be good at making something out of nothing every day, John. So I was used to that. Well, not silver spoons are entitled, and I've seen many people. I've got many extremely wealthy friends around me, right? great people, all right? But some of them, if you was to take away all their resource, and they don't know what to do, believe me. And they don't know what to do in the same way. You know, I always say to my children, for instance, I say, look, it's not the hand that you was given, because even if you're given a great hand and you're really privileged, see what happens to some of them guys, right? It's how you work with the hand that you've got. It's the difference, right? Sometimes the worst hand, John, turn out to be the best hand, right? So that's the thinking. That's what you've got to do. And everything is in there, and money's on the line, whatever. It doesn't matter. You've got to do whatever you've got to do to finish stuff. See, some people aren't finishers. It's about finishing. You know.
How do you become a finisher? How do you what's the mental model that you use for that, aside from doing it, right?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. You know, I'm trying to give as much value as possible. Do you know, for me, one of the things that got me up earlier than anyone else in the morning, John, was just knowing that literally I was walking through the Serengeti, and there are prides of lions and all kinds of beasts out there praying I'm going to fall, right? You know, so I got into the swing of it. It wasn't really about the money for me. There's no way I was going to give them what they wanted. That's a real driver. It's an unquenchable well that if you feel that and where you come from, and you think you use that as the fuel to go over, under, through, whatever needs to be done. And that is about finishing, all right? So you learn to finish through that process, you know. I can only speak about myself, my own experience.
Sure.
John.
I like that Serengeti line. That's a fascinating, it's a nice way to look at it. Tell me about the artistic side. Tell me about the TV and movies. How did that all start?
Yeah, this is another thing about business, you know, and I'm sure you've heard this many times, is a good business or something good, it doesn't necessarily, well, definitely doesn't finish or get there the way that it started. For me, it was the same, you know. All I really had at one point I knew was valuable was my story, you know. So I started doing some public speaking, motivational speaking and stuff like that. And I met some people, and I kept going, and I built businesses, and I understood about media, and then it went that way, you know, by learning, by doing, by experience, by meeting people, by, you know, being great with social skills, being able to learn, you know, and being just, you know, resilient at just not stopping, knowing really, John, it's the only way. There's nothing, you know, as I said, no one's going to do it but you. You know, what do you want? How bad you want it? It's just it's the only way. So, you know, if you're prepared to do what you need to do to learn and grow, to do that, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take everything from you, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I wish there was a way to bottle that attitude, which is fairly, which I think is what everybody needs, but rarely is exhibited. How do you tell your story? How do you tell your story? I mean, you're not proud of your past, but I think your past is A, defines you, and B, is entertaining, right, to a degree. So how do you tell that story to people, and how do you use that to gain trust?
Well, that's an interesting one as well. You know, I mean, I'm around some of the most famous, wealthy, accomplished people in the world. A lot of them are politicians and all the rest of it. You know, there's you know, if you would have said to me many years ago in the deepest, darkest dungeon, you know, don't worry because he's going to be doing this, I'd have said, whoa, what drugs are you taking, man? What planet are you on? So, you know, and I only say this because it shows you how life can be opened up and it can be changed. And a leopard can change its spots, and we can change the next hour, the next day, the next week. Don't expect the whole world to spin, but baby steps become big steps. You know, when you get a model and a pattern of doing that, you can be anything that you want to be. But it is about affecting that change and being that, right? And that's giving. That's not taking, and that's the hard stuff. You know, this is where a lot of people that's difficult. You know, for any of us. But you know, you've got to understand what the drivers are and how important this is to you, and it's more important than anything else. You've got a clarity of that because that's what we're in here. Then that can only help you, right?
Tell me a little bit about about working with Sean Bean and those guys. What was your role in those films and television?
I mean, with Sean Bean was great. It's called Original Gangsters. 4 episodes, one on Peaky Blinders, one on The Craze and Billy Hill, one on Al Capone, and one on Catherine St. Clair from Harlem, who was the Queen of Harlem back in the 20s against people like Dutch Schultz and all that. 4 episodes, So, I was one of the main interviewees on there, translating what was actually going on from, the organized crime angle. I do a lot of this. I've been I've worked with Gangs of London here, many other shows like this, Ross Kemp and the Mafia in Britain, many, all right, just to translate that expertise of what's really going on in the minds and decoding that and holding the audience's hand, all right, going through the narrative and the content. Sean Bean, of course, big star, A-list star. He's a very humble guy. He's a great guy, to watch him get into character, is really something. He's worked with all the big names. And he was brought in as a real big lead name, of course, to push that. That was Sean Bean. It was so successful, John, they've come back to us. We're doing a season 2. Can't talk about it anymore. But there's a season 2 of it coming.
Lovely.
Orlando Bloom, Bryce Dallas Howard. A lot of people may know, big names too, on deep cover. I had to come in, interrogate them, because they was playing, for film and all that, they was playing, it was a kind of a tongue-in-cheek kind of a comedy where there was a band of comedians bluffing at being, an organized crime gang, trying to get through the gate, right? It's a great film. So I was brought in as, the guy to translate that, and interrogate them all. Orlando, sweet guy, great guy, I got on very well with all of them. And great energy, when you work with the big people like that, there's great energy in the room. It was very supportive. I bring it, right? You got to make sure you go in there, you bring it at whatever level. There's some good stuff out there. People can see that on YouTube or, on the silver screen, or there's loads of stuff out there about it. They want to search that, my name and Orlando and all that stuff.
Just to close out, what would you tell not somebody in your position, right? Because I think your position was fairly unique in that it was like it was a family business, etc. But I mean, look, we're talking about some guy in Harlem, or we're talking about somebody in Red Hook, or we're talking about somebody in Wheeling, or we're talking somebody in Manchester who might have decided that the best route is to, I don't know, steal copper or something like that. How do you get somebody do drugs? And how do you get somebody out of that? And what is the first step that you need to do to build a business, to build something that similar to what you have?
Do you know what I have to say, John? It's very hard for people who are in there. So usually from deprived backgrounds, and the choices are limited, right? So the horse that has the blinkers on, it's very hard to see past that, right? It's the first thing. I know, because I've been there. But you know what? There's something about it in knowing that these kind of people are not your friends, right? And it's a dark life that doesn't have any successes in it. Well, anyone with any brains is going to know, look, be something else, pick something else, right? If you just clarify it in your own mind, there's a lot of peer pressure and stuff like that. But, you got to pick a different role model, whatever, and you got to be different. You got to be different, and that difference is, staying away from that bad energy. You do the right thing as much as you can, and much as that stings, you're going to end up somewhere better. I promise you. The other way are only the bad endings. I think clarifying it in your mind with reality is a good idea.
How do you square that with I don't know, somebody's desire to be a musician or a DJ or a sports or somebody who's super good at sports, and you keep hitting walls, right? An actor, you keep hitting walls, especially at a young age, especially if you don't have connections, especially if you don't have that. And in your case, very specifically, you didn't have connections, and you built those connections. How do you keep fighting past those points of failure to keep you out of the bad places?
Well, look, John, I've always said, right, I like to keep it very, very simple, because I need the answers in my head. There's so much going on. Challenge is only growth trying to happen, right? So it's the mindset, not everything's against me, but everything's working for me. All right, this is the first thing. We're going to hit walls, yeah. We're going to hit some walls, man. We're going to hit them so hard, we're going to go through them, and I'm going to feel it. It's going to be like it's raining, right? But, this is a mindset. You have to nurture this stuff, a person within yourself, right? You don't go to it from A to Z straight away. Understand the journey. And that's why I say, how bad do you want it? What you want to be? What you not want to be? It's just as important. And what are you prepared to give in pursuit of that? Because this is the real stuff, This is the real stuff. Doesn't matter where you come from, what it is, what it's going to be. There's no straight line here, for anyone. There's going to be zigzagged, and that's all. That's the way it is. You're going to know that. Embrace it all. But that's why it's good to be different. And people, places, and things are really the architecture of all things. If you populate that with bad energy, it's going to translate to bad energy. You translate that with good energy, people, places, and things. You're going to get a different result.
Where should people go to find out what you're working on?
Yeah, I'm out on the social media. Stephen the PH Gillen, really easy to find me. There are millions of views on YouTube and all this kind of stuff. And, I'm on Instagram and all that stuff. If you Google me, it's gonna come up there. You're gonna get you got the books, you got everything in there, and you'll be able to contact me through there. It's the easiest way, John.
Yeah. So you want folks to reach out if they're going through trouble?
Listen, absolutely. Let me tell you, right? For me, what really makes my heart sing, I could give you many, many stories. Is the next deal. This is all great, right? Achievement, right? Where I get a lot of people, they reach out to me and say, hey, I was in such a bad place, Stephen, but actually your story or what you do really gives me something to know that I can do something better. It goes a long way with me, John, really. This makes my heart smile, more than any next deal. Because I do that anyway, done that,
yeah.
Right,
Well, I really appreciate this because I think your point of view and your career are extremely unique, and I think this is super valuable.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you for the time, and thank you for being on air. Say big hi to all your audiences. Love what you do. There's some cool people on there, So.
I try, but I don't think I'll never be as cool as you hanging out with Orlando Bloom, and I feel like a failure already.
Well, there's just people are people, my brother. Really, I'm telling you, some are good, some are bad, some are in the middle somewhere.
All right, all right. Thank you, Stephen. This has been fascinating.
No, but thank you.
This has been Keep Going. I'm John Biggs. We will see you next week. Thank you for listening to Keep Going, a podcast about success and failure. Remember, Keep Going is entirely listener supported. If you're listening to this, please head over to keepgoingpod.com, where you can subscribe to the podcast for as little as $5 a month. This is a labor of love, and every little bit helps. Thanks for listening.